Welcome to Fuller Expectations, the podcast for anyone who feels that the path that they're on just isn't what they wanted or expected to be at this point in their lives. I'm Carrie Fuller, your host, and I am so excited that you took the time to listen in today. That tells me that you are investing in yourself, and that's exactly the type of person this podcast is for. Every week, we're going to have real conversations, share inspiring stories, and offer you the support that you need to create a life that feels aligned with your goals, your passion, and your purpose. A life that's just truly authentically yours. If you're interested in better, you are in the right place. We deserve to live a life that offers us true joy, no matter what age or stage we're in. If you like what you've heard today and thought of someone who might benefit by it, please share this podcast with them. Now, let's get right into it. Today's episode brings us to a world where time, precision, and humanity all come together in the most extraordinary way. My guest, Wade, is a 27-year-old pilot who flies for a medical company, and the mission is unlike most. He transports organs for transplant patients, often carrying not just cargo, but the hopes of a second chance at life. Every flight Wade takes is a reminder of the ripple effect of organ donation. Behind each transplant is a story of loss, of generosity, and of lives forever changed. Raising awareness about the importance of organ donors isn't about saving one life, it's about the countless others that are impacted, families, friends, and communities. What's even more remarkable today is how technology has transformed this process. In the past, organs had to come from within a limited mile or hour radius of the recipient. But with advances in medical matching and aviation logistics, organs can now be transported across the country, giving more patients access to the right match and giving pilots like Wade a critical role in making that possible. So join me as we step into Wade's world to hear what it's like to carry such responsibility at such a young age and to reflect on the incredible ways we are all connected when it comes to saving lives. Let's get started. Hi, Wade.
Hello.
Thanks for joining me today.
Of course.
I am super excited to talk a little bit about your profession and share a little bit with our listeners about organ donation and the role that you play as one of the individuals involved with making sure that organs get from donor to recipient. I thought we could start with a little bit about your background. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became a pilot?
I'm the podcast host's son. I started flying when I was about 14, thanks to her, actually. She got me an airplane ride as a gift for my 13th or 14th birthday, I don't remember. But I started flying very shortly after that because I fell in love with it. And from there, I did flight lessons on and off until college came around. Never got my private pilot license or anything like that. And then when college rolled around, I applied to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona Beach. I ended up going there for about a year and realized that it wasn't quite the path that was for me. What I did is I split my college and my flight training apart rather than having them together. I went to another flight school across the airport in Daytona Beach, and I got all of my pilot's licenses there. I started flight instructing just after the pandemic in 2021, and from there, I was lucky enough to get this job flying organs around.
It's interesting because I know that we both learned a lot about the process of getting educated if you want to be a pilot. Is there something that you can share or recommend to people who might have kids or maybe themselves, they want to kind of go down that road as far as the education? What would you recommend that they do, having been through it yourself?
Historically, airlines and other companies have gone up and down with their requirement of having a college degree. As of right now, it's actually kind of split. There's only one airline that I'm aware of that still requires the college degree, and the other airlines could follow suit at any point. I would recommend having a degree. Now, the funny thing is, I wouldn't recommend getting a degree in aviation. I would recommend getting a degree in whatever your plan B is, because they don't care what kind of degree you have. They care that you have the degree itself. So, to be honest, flight training is a lot of money. So I would highly recommend saving money, going to a state school or even a community college, and then jumping up to a state school after that. Like I said, they don't care what your degree's in, they just care that you have a degree or some form of higher education.
And talking about your role now, what led you specifically to the role of transporting organs and medical teams?
It's sort of an aviation industry thing, is that like it never really goes how you plan it to. I always wanted to fly for an airline, and I feel like that's kind of the route that 90% of people that end up flying are determining they want to fly for a career. That's what they end up trying to do. But the aviation industry kind of operates on sort of like a 5-year cycle. They usually have a bunch of openings every 5 years or so, and then it slows down quite substantially. So I happen to get my hour requirements right at the downhill part of the hiring process. So it was very difficult to get a job. And I was at a point where flight instructing it's a great job and you learn a ton, but there's a point where you'll get pretty burnt out with it. It's kind of a dangerous job. You fly a lot. It's very tiring. So there's a point where you really want to move on. And I was at that point. So what I did is I went to a website that posts business jet jobs. So rather than an airline, I was looking at, small little private jets. And I happened to land on a job that was basically transporting sort of rich people. I applied, I interviewed, and I got it. And right when I got hired, we got bought out by a medical company. So it's interesting because I got hired to fly rich people around. And then when I actually hit the line and started flying, I never flew a passenger. We were flying organs around. So it kind of just all fell into place. But yeah, it was more so out of just trying to grow my career than actually specifically targeting it. But I am pretty glad that I wound up in the situation that I'm in.
What's the best part of your job?
I love the airplane. It's such a fun little airplane. It's a really great first jet for anybody listening that, wants to fly jets. If you ever see a position for a Phenom 300, it's a really, really good way to get into the jet world because it's small, it's lightweight, it handles like a smaller airplane. It's not as heavy as some of the bigger airplanes out there. In the avionics, it has a G3000 in it, and it's really popular these days for flight training airplanes to have a G1000. And the G3000 is basically just a big version of that, a big fancy version of that. So if you come from a G1000 airplane, the transition to a G3000 is like so easy. So that removes an entire learning element of the airplane. So now you don't have to learn the avionics as much. You just have to learn the systems and the limitations. And it just is so much easier for people first getting into jets.
So was this the career path that you ever imagined for yourself at your age?
I definitely knew I was going to fly. The timing kind of didn't work out for me to fly for an airline, so I ended up here. So did I see myself flying organs or small business jets? Business jets maybe, but definitely not flying organs around. To be honest, when I was coming up, I didn't even really think, I knew it was a thing, but it never crossed my mind.
So how do you feel about that now?
I like it. It's a very rewarding mission, probably the most rewarding mission that I think I'll ever have in my life.
Can you walk us through what a typical organ transport mission might look like?
We show up to the airplane. Before we leave for the airport, though, we'll have a trip sheet, and we'll take it. We'll go to the airplane. We'll pre-flight. We'll flight plan, weight and balance, all that stuff, all your typical airplane flying stuff. And then usually they're on time. Sometimes what I've noticed is that if we are picking up just the technician who is monitoring the organ and the machine, they're usually on time. But usually the team that is coming from the hospital with the organ, that time frame is very, very up in the air. For example, the other night we were in Atlanta, and I think our original departure time was 3 a.m. and the team didn't actually get to us in the airplane until about 6:30, if I remember correctly, a.m. So obviously it's a lot of sitting and waiting, but again, the mission is like the number one priority. So the team will get to us. We'll fly to wherever the donor is, and we usually drop off the team, and the harvest time depends on the organ. Usually anything sort of in the upper half of the body, so like the heart and the lungs, is usually fairly quick, anywhere from I'd say 3 to 4, maybe 5 hours. And the liver is usually the one that takes the longest. Sometimes they'll be gone for like 7 hours, and we're just basically hanging out at the airport waiting for them the whole time. Once they get to us, though, we're shuttling the organ to where it needs to go, and usually at that point, that's the end of the pilot's responsibility, because we only have 14 hours from when we start our day to when we legally have to end our day. So if you figure, if we fly 2 hours and then we sit for 7 and then we fly for another 2, that's 11 hours. And it's going to take the team more than 3 hours to finish the transplant. So we're well out of time at that point. So that's usually the end of the day for us. And we just head back to the hotel and get ready for the next day, where we usually bring the team back unless they find another case for us to pick up from our current location. That's the only time that we would ever not bring the team back to their wherever they came from.
So there's a lot of logistics involved.
Oh, so much.
With everything. Your company must have a huge logistics department.
We do. And we actually don't really interact with the logistics team. It's sort of interesting. The aviation department and the actual medical side are sort of operating as two separate entities right now. And the logistic team is kind of the bridge. The people that we communicate directly with is our dispatch team. And our dispatch team is amazing. I love those guys and girls so much. And they're the ones that are filling us in. Basically, like I said, they're kind of the bridge between the medical side and the aviation team. So they're the ones giving us the most up-to-date information during our cases.
So they're the ones that coordinate with the hospitals and the organ procurement teams and the transplant surgeons and all of that?
I think that's more of the logistics side on the medical side. The schedulers, like in the dispatch team for us, is specifically for like the pilots in the airplanes. It's still pretty sort of segregated. I think there's plans to kind of make it a little more cohesive and make sure we're all kind of in the same loop. But at the moment, it's still fairly separated.
And so when you're flying the organs from the donor to the recipient, what percentage of the time would you say the medical teams are on the flight as well?
Well, they're always on the flight. Well, there's always at least one, because we have the nurse. They call them OCS specialists. Sort of like how I'm always with the airplane, they're always with the machine. So anytime the machine goes somewhere, they're with us. The only person that's kind of up in the air as to whether they come with us or not is the surgeon. The surgeon will be with us when we go to harvest the organ, but when the organ actually gets to us to bring it to the donor, the surgeon is not there anymore, because at that point his job's done. So there's no point in him flying to a random city with us and sitting for hours on end. So usually what he does is he just airlines home right after the procedure's done. Or he goes to a hotel if it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, those are usually the only people that we have with us. Every now and then, a nurse will have somebody shadowing them, like whether it be like a student from like a university or something like that, a medical student. But that's about it. Those are the only people we really carry.
And you talk about the box. What is the box for people listening?
Traditionally, like when most people think of organ transplants, they think of the organs being put like in a cooler on ice. And that still is done by some companies, but my company invented a machine called the OCS, the Organ Care System, and what it does is it essentially uses warm perfusion. So what that means is really it tricks the organ into thinking that it's still in a human body. So it keeps it at body temperature, it keeps it circulating with fresh oxygenated blood. If it's a heart, it actually keeps the heart physically pumping. So if you take the lid off the box, you can see the heart actually beating. And so it's kind of a medical miracle, but yeah, it keeps the organ alive, and it can keep the organ alive for quite a long time. And traditionally, it's been like I don't know what the exact time is, but you're talking hours.
So what is something that most people don't realize about what goes on behind the scenes with organ transplantation?
Honestly, I don't think a lot of people really think about where it came from. I mean, I know the recipients do, because they're the ones that have a new organ in them and they're like, oh, I wonder where this came from. But just in general, when you think of organ transplant, I think a lot of people in their head, they imagine like in an operating room that the donor's right there and the recipient's like right on the other table right next to them, and they just pick it up and put it in. Or for like long-term organ transportation, they think of the cooler, which I had mentioned before. Not a lot of people realize that we have this machine. So I think bringing the machine, the OCS, into the public eye will really change people's perspective on like just how far organ transplantation, has come.
So I think, I'm an organ donor, of course, because it's important to my family having a family member, my dad, who received a kidney transplant a long time ago. And you're right, that was a situation where it was a relative. So his brother was the donor. And so in that case, he was side by side in the hospital, and it came out of one and went into the other. But it's true that does not always happen. And I think something that people might not realize about the importance of being an organ donor is that there are so many people on the list. And what's exciting about the advancing technology and things like that of organ transplants, and how you can have a donor in California give an organ to somebody like in Boston. And that never used to be the case. You had to be within a certain mile radius of the donor and the recipient. And so that's pretty cool that that has changed. How has this job changed the way that you think about time, urgency, or purpose?
As far as purpose goes, it really kind of hit me the first time that one of the OCS specialists took off the lid for the OCS, and I got to see a beating heart for the first time. And that was strange, but it really kind of drove home the fact that there's somebody somewhere that's like counting on me to actually perform my duty and get them something that they desperately need. And I don't even have words for it. It was a very moving experience. And to think that I've now seen dozens, if not hundreds, of beating hearts and move them where they needed to go. I will say it's not as time critical as it used to be, but I'm still extremely motivated to get it there as quickly as humanly possible. Extremely moving stuff.
I would imagine, especially given that you know somebody that had a heart transplant personally, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So what moments have stuck with you the most? Either unforgettable moment, was there an unforgettable or emotional moment that stuck with you the most?
Well, I can pick two. First one being from the aviation side. Usually the way aviation works is, especially at that bigger level, what happens is the company will send you to a simulator center and you'll actually get your license. And this might scare some people, but like an airline pilot's first day at the job is in the actual airplane. That's his first time flying it. And it kind of goes that way for all big planes, including light jets. But at the time that I was hired, the company was doing the training in the airplane. So my first time flying the jet was actually getting in it and flying it. Usually, like I said, it's through simulators, but this was the real deal. So my very first time flying a jet, I had to now go and land the jet. And boy, let me tell you, in a Cessna, you land at 65 knots, and in this thing, depending on the day, you're landing at over 100. So that's quite a difference in speed when you're coming into land. It's just much bigger, and it sticks out to this day. I remember the exact feeling in my butt when I touched down on the runway. It was bizarre. I also remember the first time putting the power all the way in. In a Cessna, you get like that little rumble and like, and then you just kind of slowly start scooting along the ground. But in this thing, I put the power all the way forward and it launched me back into my seat. And then you lift the thing off the ground and you're pitched 20 degrees into the air, and you like look off to your side and you like see yourself actually climbing like almost vertically. It's the craziest thing ever, doing it in the actual airplane first time around. So that's from the aviation side, but from the actual work side, I know I had just mentioned it in the previous question, but seeing the heart for the first time, or seeing any organ for the first time, really. I remember my first lung, I remember my first liver, but it's just like so bizarre that it's right there beating and functioning. It's like, I can't even describe it. It's bizarre, but in like a really rewarding way.
Has it changed how you think about your own health?
Not really. I've always been sort of a health conscious person, I'd say. I have to take care of myself to make sure that I don't need one of those at some point in the future.
And thinking about the bigger picture and the fact that it takes a whole team of people to pull off everything and get the organs from point A to point B. What have you learned about the incredible network of people that it takes to just make one transplant possible?
It takes a village.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many people involved. Just in the pilots, I believe right now for our company, we're at like 110 pilots. And that's just the pilots. That doesn't include all of the nurses at all of our bases all over the country. It doesn't include our dispatchers, who again are amazing. I love them. The crew support team, the higher ups sort of on the aviation department, and that's just people that I'm directly affiliated with. There's an entire different side of the company, like the medical side, and they're all working just as hard. So I mean, on any given case, I would say that there's hundreds and hundreds of people that are going through these cases every day, and I don't think people really realize that.
And have you developed a new appreciation for any other professions, say like nurses, drivers, dispatchers? You mentioned some of them, but what's your thought about people in those positions now?
I give high praise to all of them because they're all part of the mission. They all have their own role and they do it like extremely well. All the pilots that I've flown with, they've been great. The dispatchers, I know I've said it like 100 times so far, but our dispatchers are amazing. Our crew support team is amazing. The nurses and specialists and surgeons, they're all amazing and great to be with, great to fly with. I appreciate all, even the drivers. I mean, sometimes when we get to our destination, the nurse or whoever's monitoring the organ, they'll need to run a test right when we park, and sometimes that can take them like 15 minutes. So we'll just be hanging out and we'll be talking with the driver. They're up there at the airport at 3 o'clock in the morning, sometimes with us, or we're like sitting there watching the sunrise together after a long night of flying, and they've been waiting there the whole time too. And depending on where we go, they might have like a 2-hour drive ahead of them. I remember we did a trip to Pensacola, Florida, and it was 4 a.m. and I think we were bringing the organ to Birmingham, Alabama. And we were looking at the weather, and we actually had to wait for weather to blow by. And the driver was like volunteering, like, hey, if I have to, like, we'll drive them. And that would have been like a 30-minute flight. Not even probably, but it ended up being like a 4.5-5 hour drive for the driver. So they ended up driving them up there. So that was a driver that woke up thinking he was just going to go to the airport and back, and then, the airport, the hospital, drop them off and then go home. And now he's picking them up, driving them all the way to Birmingham, Alabama, 5 hours away, and then he has to come 5 hours back and then go home. So the drivers do an amazing job as well. But no, I really appreciate the work that everybody does. They're all incredible.
So what do you wish that people knew about organ donation and transplantation that they might not have known before?
Probably the amount of people that are involved and how hard they all work. I think I mentioned a few times, I think all of my stories actually have taken place at night, but a lot of us are working well into the night, so we're kind of operating a lot of the times in the dark, and you guys don't ever really see or hear from us, but it doesn't mean that we're not out there doing what we got to do.
Yeah, well, everyone's in bed.
Yeah.
People that are working around the clock, literally, to save lives.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you could share one thing with someone who's listening who is not yet an organ donor, if there's something that you could share with that person to make them consider becoming an organ donor, what would you say?
As many transplants as we're doing, there's still a shortage in organs for people that need transplants. Unfortunately, there's still people that are passing because they do not get the organs that they need when they need them. It would be a very, very selfless thing for you to do if you became an organ donor, because you're helping give another person that you have no clue who they are, where they live, what their occupation is, anything like that. You're giving them a chance, and you're helping their families as well.
That's awesome. Very good point. Very good point, Wade. So is there anything that you want to share that I didn't ask you about?
I really don't think so. This is probably the most thorough interview I've ever had, to be honest.
All right. Well, I appreciate you being here today. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I wanted to share some information regarding the people that are waiting for organ transplants in the country today. According to my research, there are currently over 100,000 people on the National Transplant Waiting List. Every 8 minutes, someone is added to this wait list. Between 13 and 17 people die each day waiting for an organ transplant. Different sources noted 13 and some up to 17, so I wanted to share this information. The impact per donor is huge. Each organ donor can save up to 8 lives. In 2024, there were 45,217 organs from donors who passed that resulted in transplantation, resulting in 39,505 lives that were saved. This is a new record. On average, 132 organ transplants occur every single day. If you have questions regarding organ transplantation, I encourage you to do your own research and think about whether or not this might be right for you. Thanks for listening today. If this episode sparked something in you, please share it with a friend, leave a comment or a review, and reach out and let me know what resonated. Remember, no matter what age or stage of life you're in, you can pivot. And always remember, the second half of life is not a winding down. It's a waking up. Please follow or subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of our podcast family. Let's keep showing up and being the best version of ourselves. Until next time, take care.